So in today's class, what I have for you in today's class, I will discuss about A.D. Hope, an Australian poet, and he has written a well-known poem that is ऑस्ट्रेलिया. तो आज हम लोग जो बात करेंगे एडी होप को लेकर के बात करेंगे, ऑस्ट्रेलिया को लेकर के बात करेंगे, और कल हम एलिस वॉकर और एडी होप दोनों पे आपका एक टेस्ट कराएंगे, क्योंकि आज हम एडी होप को भी कंप्लीट कर लेंगे. तो यू सी हियर, जो एडी होप है, इनका पूरा नाम है एलेक डरवेंट होप. सबसे पहला पॉइंट है कि एडी होप का पूरा नाम क्या है, एलेक डरवेंट होप. द फुल फॉर्म ऑफ एडी होप इज एलेक डरवेंट होप, ALECDERWENT. Alec Derwent Hope was born on 21st July 1907. We have to remember he was born on 21st July 1907 at Kuma. That is another point, but we have to remember two significant points. A.D. Hope was an Australian poet. Number one point, the full form of A.D. Hope is Alec Derwent Hope. We must know the full form, because the full form of W.H. Auden has been asked. That is Western Hughes Auden, WISTAN Hughes HUGH Auden. In the same way, you also come to know about T.S. Eliot का पूछा जा चुका है, T.S. Eliot का, Thomas Easton Eliot. In the same way, you have to remember about this writer, A.D. Hope. A.D. Hope, Alec Derwent Hope, was born on 21st July 1907 at Cooma in the Snowy Mountains area of southern New South Wales. Where southern New South Wales? It's about the place. Where his father was a Presbyterian minister, he was educated at home and at schools in Tasmania एंड न्यू साउथ वेल्स. इसका मतलब पूरा का पूरा जो उनका एजुकेशन हुआ, जो अर्ली चाइल्डहुड हुआ, वो कहाँ पर जो है, न्यू साउथ वेल्स में गुजरा हुआ है. दैट इज न्यू साउथ वेल्स. उसके बाद एज द फैमिली मूव्ड अराउंड टू डिफरेंट पेरिशेस, मैट्रिकुलेटिंग टू सिडनी यूनिवर्सिटी, एडी होप गॉट मैट्रिकुलेशन फ्रॉम सिडनी यूनिवर्सिटी. एडी होप गॉट मैट्रिकुलेशन फ्रॉम सिडनी यूनिवर्सिटी. He graduated Bachelor of Arts with majors in English and philosophy. When he was doing Bachelor of Arts, he opted two subjects, English and philosophy. I am not saying that you must know what the subject he opted. I am telling you some general information, some general facts. Yeah, that is the biographical study. A.D. Hope, an Australian poet. A.D. Hope का पूरा full form क्या है? Alec Derwent Hope. A.D. Hope was born on 21st July 1907. And already I told you, when you talk about this man A.D. Hope, he just did matriculation from Sydney University, and during graduation he opted English and philosophy. In 1921 and won a scholarship to University College ऑक्सफोर्ड. उनको जो है एक स्कॉलरशिप भी मिला था यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेज ऑक्सफोर्ड में. तो दीज आर द पॉइंट्स विच यू हैव टू नोट डाउन. ये पॉइंट्स है जो आपको नोट डाउन करना है, कम से कम एक अलग पेजेस में, एक अलग जगह पे आपको ये सारे पॉइंट्स अपनी नोटबुक पे कर लेना है, ताकि ये रहे कि यू नो समथिंग अबाउट एडी होप. His Oxford career, however, was not a distinguished one. He returned to Sydney. वो सिडनी दोबारा आ गए, वापस आ गए. उनका वहां का करियर बहुत अच्छा नहीं था, और एक कब हुआ, 1932 में. With a disappointing third class degree and trained as a teacher. With a disappointing third class degree and trained as a teacher. उनको जो है, जो डिग्री मिली हुई थी, वो कौन सी थी? थर्ड क्लास डिग्री थी. अब आप ये समझने की कोशिश करिए कि ये डिसअपॉइंटिंग तो था, लेकिन आज के समय में इफ यू एंड आई गेट थर्ड क्लास डिग्री, देयर इज नो वैल्यू ऑफ दैट मार्कशीट, देयर इज नो वैल्यू ऑफ दैट piece of paper in our life if we don't get any service, or means if we don't get any job. The same thing you can also see with whom, with Mahatma Gandhi. He also got third division. So third division doesn't matter, means your knowledge, all these things matter, but sometimes when thing is going to happen on the basis of merit, तो वो चीज important हो जाता है. लेकिन एडी होप जो थर्ड डिवीजन पास हुए थे, वो एक इंटरनेशनल पोएट भी बनते हैं, कुछ ना कुछ टैलेंट होता है, वो हमें पहचानना है। मैं इसके इनके लाइफ को लेके आपको ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि यू ऑल आर द स्कॉलर्स। आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट यू आर द रिसर्च स्कॉलर, आई एम यूजिंग द वर्ड यू ऑल आर द स्कॉलर्स। you have to just recognize your ability. You must know about your potency. You must know something what you can do and in which field you can do. तो वो चीजें आपको खुद ब खुद एंड one day you will get success, name, fame, prosperity, all these things will come in your life. So disappointing third class degree and trained as a teacher. In 1937 Hope married पेनिलोप रॉबिन्सन। ये पॉइंट तो नोट करने वाली चीज है। कौन कौन सी पॉइंट नोट करने वाली चीज है? एडी होप वॉज एन ऑस्ट्रेलियन पोएट born on 21st July 1907 at Puma, and most of his childhood या early days passed around New South Wales, southern New South Wales. Second important point, what you have to remember, you have to remember that he married in 1937 पेनिलोप रॉबिन्सन के साथ उनका मैरिज हुआ था। Then you find he was appointed lecturer in education at the Sydney Teachers College in 1937। उन्होंने अपना जो कार्य शुरू किया एक टीचर के रूप में। समटाइम्स कभी कभार ये पूछा भी जाता है कि द पोएट स्टार्टेड हिज करियर हाउ, तो द पोएट स्टार्टेड हिज करियर एज अ सिडनी टीचर्स, सॉरी टीचर्स के रूप में। Another point कि later becoming lecturer in English, बाद में lecturer भी हुए कब? 1938 से 44। During the 1940 Hope took part in the Australian Broadcasting Commission Children's Session। इसमें भी इनका पार्टिसिपेशन रहा। Australian Broadcasting Commission Children's Session as Anthony Inkwell conducting the literary section of the Argonaut moved to the University of Melbourne। यहाँ से उनका अब एक ब्राइट करियर शुरू होगा। In 1945 he moved to the University of Melbourne। This point you have to note down। And in 1951 was appointed professor of English at Canberra University College। कैनबरा यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेज में वो प्रोफेसर नियुक्त हुए, किसके? इंग्लिश सब्जेक्ट में। और जिसको जो है बाद में क्या कहा गया उस यूनिवर्सिटी को? लेटर द ऑस्ट्रेलियन नेशनल यूनिवर्सिटी। लेटर द ऑस्ट्रेलियन taught until his retirement in 1968, where he taught until his retirement in 1968। I just want to tell you one significant point. What the point you have to keep in mind, the point which you have to keep in your mind is here, that is very significant, that is important to note down, that he moved to the University of Melbourne in 1945। 1945 में वो यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ मेलबोर्न जाते हैं। 1951 ईस्वी में वो क्या होते हैं? उनको जो है प्रोफेसर ऑफ इंग्लिश एट कैनबरा यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेज में मिलता है और वहां पे वो 1968 तक रहते हैं। एंड दैट इज व्हाट, दैट इज द ऑस्ट्रेलियन नेशनल यूनिवर्सिटी, उसको बाद में पुकारा गया या जाना गया। दिस इज द पॉइंट व्हिच यू हैव टू रिमेंबर। Although he had been writing for many years, Hope did not publish any of his poems until the 1930s. His first collection, The Wandering Island, this is a very significant point। उनका पहला जो collection poem का था, The Wandering Island, that is what, that is the Wandering Island, did not appear until 1955, by which he had built a reputation as a poet through publications in various periodicals। It was praised for Hope's skillful use of traditional words forms and critique of contemporary values, and received the Grace Levin Poetry Prize। And he got what? He got the Grace Levin Poetry Prize। This is another important point। अगर ये चीज पूछा जाता है कि उनका पहला पोएटिक कलेक्शन कौन सा था, द वैंडरिंग आईलैंड, WANDERING, द वैंडरिंग आईलैंड उनका पहला पोएटिक कलेक्शन था। दूसरा चीज, उनको जो है एक प्राइज मिलता है और उस प्राइज का क्या नाम रहा है? ग्रेस लेवन पोइट्री प्राइज। इस सेकेंड कलेक्शन पोएम्स 1960, उनका जो सेकेंड कलेक्शन था उसका नाम है पोएम्स 1960, was published in London underscoring the fact that for many years Hope was the best known Australian poet internationally, appearing in many anthologies and receiving in 1965 the आर्ट्स काउंसिल ऑफ ग्रेट ब्रिटेन अवार्ड। और 1965 में उनको दूसरा अवार्ड मिलता है जिसका क्या नाम था, द आर्ट्स काउंसिल ऑफ ग्रेट ब्रिटेन पोइट्री अवार्ड। In 1968, the Levinson Prize for Poetry, Chicago, and in 1969, the Ingram Merrill Award for Literature. So these were the awards which he got. I'm not saying that you don't have to pay your attention. I want to draw your attention about these awards, the awards which was received by this man. So what you have to remember, उनके वर्क के बारे में रिमेम्बर करना है और उनके आपको उनका अवार्ड के बारे में। आई जस्ट वांट टू नो अबाउट दिस, आई वांट टू आस्क सम क्वेश्चंस और आप सारे लोग आंसर दे सकते हैं, कोई उसमें वो जरूरी नहीं है। यू कैन जस्ट ऑन योर माइक एंड जस्ट गिव मी आंसर। व्हाट इज द फुल फॉर्म ऑफ एडी होप? या
Ellie Derwent Hope.
Alec Derwent Hope. I know you know it, but I just want to recall, I just want to revise. That is Alec Derwent Hope. Okay. Eddie Hope was born in which year? Eddie Hope was born
1907.
1907. What is the name of the place? Yeah, what was the name of that place?
Uma.
Kuma.
Kuma. He was born at Kuma. And he
Kuma.
passed his, yeah, Kuma. He passed his early childhood where? He passed his early childhood where?
Southern New Wales.
Yeah, Southern New Wales. Southern New Wales. He passed his early childhood, Southern New Wales. Just I want to know, he matriculated from which university? He matriculated from which university?
Sydney University.
Sydney University. And I want to know, he in 19 when he was doing graduation, which two subjects he opted to do BA?
Philosophy and English.
Philosophy and English. ठीक है, okay, okay. Philosophy and English. And he also won a scholarship to which university?
University College, Oxford.
University College, Oxford. That's good. That's good. He married in 1937. Whom?
Penelope Robinson.
Penelope Robinson. He married in 1937 Penelope Robinson. That's another significant point. Now you see what he was appointed lecturer in education at which college in 1937?
Sydney Teachers College.
Sydney Teachers College in 1937. These were some important information, some basic questions which I discussed with you, and I also asked, recalled your memory. Now in this page, what do you see here? He was, you find the Australian Broadcasting Commission Children's Session. That is another thing. I just want to know what I just want to know. He moved to the University of Melbourne. Which year? He moved to the University of
1945.
1945. And which year he was appointed Professor of English at Canberra University College?
1951.
1951. Canberra University College is also known as
Australian National University.
Australian National University. Good. He taught there till his until his retirement. What was the last
1968.
year? 1968.
1968.
Good. Second point I want to tell you, what is the name of his first poetic collection?
The Wandering Islands.
The Wandering Island. The Wandering Island. That appeared in 1955. And second important collection, the name of his second important poetic collection.
Poem. Poems.
Poems 1960. Poems 1960. Okay, that's good. I just want to know about some awards, especially in 1965. Which award he got? Yeah, he was awarded with the prize in 1965.
Arts Council of Great
The
Britain
Art
Poetry
Council
Award.
of Great Britain
Arts
Poetry.
Council of Great Britain Poetry. And in 1968,
Levinson Prize for Poetry.
Levinson Prize for Poetry, Chicago. Levinson Prize for Poetry, Chicago. And in 1969,
Ingram Merrill Award for Literature, New York.
in New York. In New York. My objective is not to tell ki that you have to remember these awards, but I just want to say that you must know about these awards and chronologically you must know. Which year he got the Arts of Council of Great Britain, which year he got Levinson Prize for Poetry Chicago, and which year he got Ingram Merrill Award for Literature. These things you have to remember. You have to remember his poetic collection, The Wandering Islands in 1955, poems 1960, appointed what professor of English at Canberra University College, and there he served until his retirement in 1968. These points you have to remember. Now you see this passage here, a small volume of selected poems, A.D. Hope. A.D. Hope ka is a small volume of selected poems, A.D. Hope, in Angus and Robertson's Australian Poets series was soon followed by collected poems 1930, 1965. Thereafter, collection of new poems appeared at regular intervals, interposed by new edition of selected poems in 1972, 1986, and 1992. The latter sharing the Australian Capital Territory Book of the Year Award 1983, a late picking poems 1965-1978 received the Age Book of the Year Award. Imaginative Writing Prize for 1976. The satiric note so strong in much of Hope's earlier work and seen especially in his mock heroic Dunsad Minor. That is the in his mock heroic. This is another important work which you have to remember. In his mock heroic Dunsad Minor, a contemporary version of English 18th century poet Alexander Pope's द डांसैट, जो अलेक्जेंडर पोप का जो पोयम द डांसैट था उसका जो है एक तरह से आप कह सकते हैं कि दैट मॉक हीरोइक डांसैट माइनर के रूप में वो आता है एंड दैट वाज द कंटेम्प्रेरी वर्जन था। तो ये चीज ध्यान में रखना है कि उनका जो वर्क है that is the means here heroic dance and minor, it came in 1970 and you find that it's the contemporary version of English 18th century poet Alexander Pope's The Dunciad is less evident in his late poem. His interest in mythology is seen as embodying the great commonplaces of human life remained until the end and is apparent in the title of his final collection Orpheus. So this is another important work, Orpheus. Orphus. I just want to know one point. Which work of which work of uh, A.D. Hope you can say as the contemporary version of English 18th century poet Alexander Pope's The Dunciad. Which work of A.D. Hope? एडी होप का वो कौन सा वर्क है जो एक तरह से कहा जा सकता है कि इट्स द कंटेम्प्रेरी वर्जन ऑफ 18th century English poet Alexander Pope's The Dunciad.
Dunciad Minor.
Dunciad Minor, 1970. Okay. Now you find here what you find here कि उनका जो एक the great commonplaces of human life remained until the end as apparent in the title of his final collection. Which was his final collection? Yeah, entitled. His final collection was entitled Orpheus, Orpheus. In addition to his many volumes of poetry, Hope was a widely published critic, reviewer, and editor. The Cave and the Spring essays on poetry won both the 1965 Britannica Australia Literary Award and Volkswagen Award for 1966. After some years in a Canberra nursing home, Hope died on 13th July 2000. 13 जुलाई 2000 को उनकी मौत हुई है। 1907 ईस्वी को उनका जन्म हुआ था। इट मीन्स दैट कि 93 years, around 93 years. In 91 he had been made a companion of the Order of Australia. उनको 98 में companion of Order of Australia नियुक्त किया जाता है for services to literature, literature की service के लिए। I just want to tell you here कि when you talk about these works are fierce when you talk about the cave and the spring essays and poetry. These are the things which you see, and some other works you find here जो उनका रहा है The Wandering Islands 1955, Poems 1960, A.D. होप का ये भी जो था 1963, कलेक्टेड पोएम्स है, न्यू पोएम्स है, डनसैट माइनर 1970, A Late Picking Poems 1975, A Book of Answers 1978, The Drifting Continent and Other Poems. Here you see all these things you see. The Age of Reason 1984, and the last is Orpheus. So you remember Orpheus also, and he died in 2000. These points you have to remember. So we have taken what? We have taken a series of the poet, poetess, novelist, dramatist who come, yeah, who falls in the category of new literature in English. Today I am discussing with you the second poet. Already I had gone with Alice Walker and her poem Remember Me and her novel The Color Purple, if you remember. And I also told you ki what do you mean new literature in English, what the subject matter, what the theme do you find. So if I talk about Alice Walker, you must remember what an Australian poet born in 1907, died in 2000, famous as a poet and some other contributions of English, and his contribution is worldwide, especially in the field of humanities, in the field of literature. But here today, excepted what I have to take, I will discuss with you his well poem, that is Australia, because this poem is prescribed in so many colleges or universities. So it's not possible to discuss all the works of a writer. It's not possible, but it's possible to discuss some important poems in a detailed way. So today, what I have picked up for you, I have picked up for you a beautiful poem named Australia, composed by whom? Composed by A.D. Hope, and you find here critical analysis. A.D. Hope was an Australian poet and essayist known for his satirical slant. He was also a critic, teacher, and an academic. He was referred to in an American journal as the 20th century's greatest 18th century poet. 20वीं शताब्दी के ऐसे पोएट जो 18वीं शताब्दी के पैटर्न पर लिखते हैं. 20th century's greatest 18th century poet. So what I have taken for you, I have taken for you a poem written by this man, that is Australia. What do you see in this poem? In the poem Australia, A.D. Hope questions the idea that Australia is civilized. Again, I would like to tell you कि here A.D. Hope cries, here A.D. Hope sobs, here A.D. Hope laments. What seeing the plight situation of Australia. Once Australia was a beautiful land. Once Australia had beautiful land. Once Australia had greenery. Once Australia had its own history. Once Australia had its own culture. Once Australia had its own identity. But these things were devastated. These things were, you can say, eradicated by colonizer. And who were the colonizer? The European imperialist nation who settled down there and made their colony in Australia. So what they did, they eradicated. So उसी चीज को देख करके उन्होंने पूरा ऑस्ट्रेलिया का not only भूगोल, उसका इतिहास, उसका कल्चर, उसका पास्ट, उसका प्रेजेंट, उसका फ्यूचर बताया है। एक तरह से उनको अपने वतन की स्थिति पर बहुत दुख होता है और वो लिखते हैं, क्या लिखते हैं कि इन द पोयम ऑस्ट्रेलिया एडी होप क्वेश्चंस द आइडिया दैट ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज सिविलाइज्ड। क्या रियली में ऑस्ट्रेलिया सभ्य वतन है, सभ्य कंट्री है? दिस इज द क्वेश्चन, and this is what, it's a basic point of post colonial era. Are you civilized? Are you sophisticated person? Means are you a sophisticated man, woman? So sophistication, culture, civilization, polished man, polished woman, these are the questions which you see here. So I just want to tell you कि AD Hope questions the idea that Australia is civilized. In the first five stanzas, the poet talks about Australia. शुरू के 5 में पोएट केवल किसके बारे में बात करता? ऑस्ट्रेलिया के बारे में. He describes how it is both a new and old country, geologically old but politically new. It's a very important point. वह बताते हैं कि जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया है वह न्यू है और वह ओल्ड भी है. ओल्ड उसका पास्ट शो करता है, न्यू इसका प्रेजेंट बताता है. एंड हाउ ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज ओल्ड, हाउ ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज न्यू. Geologically it's old but politically Australia is new because Australia was the colony of the British Empire. It got freedom, and now you find it how now you see that politically it's a newborn country. And how it is both a European colony. It's a very important point. Already I discussed with you. Australia was the colony of the European imperialist empire and an independent but a पैरासिटिकल कंट्री. यह इंडिपेंडेंट तो हो चुका. ऑस्ट्रेलिया गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस. ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज नाउ एन इंडिपेंडेंट नेशन, but it is what? It's a parasitical country. Even today, it depends upon whom? It depends upon European imperialist nation. It imitates, yeah, you can say so many things. You can see there the influence of the culture, the influence of the civilization, and other things you can just see there. That is a very important point. वहाँ ये सब चीजें रही है. Now I just want to say, I just want to tell you, but a parasitical country. The next two stanzas talk about the, yeah, talks about the wilderness of Australia. कह रहे हैं कि जो next two stanza है वह बताता है how Australia had greenery, how Australia had forest. The wilderness of Australia. The poet describes Australia as being a nation of trees. It's a very significant point. ऑस्ट्रेलिया का ये चीज उसको कितना ज्यादा, हाउ मच ही लव्स हिज कंट्रीज, स्पेशली ट्रीज, माउंटेन्स, rivers, and how much the poet is conscious to protect her natural to protect its natural objects उसको जो है. और क्या कहता है कि the poet describes Australia as being, and what being? Na- nation of trees, drab green and desolate grey. It's a very significant point. Nation of trees. Once Australia was a nation, और ये नेशन कैसा था? हरा भरा था, इसमें ग्रीनरी थी, और डिसोलेट ग्रे अब हो चुका है. द डार्केंस हर हिल्स, द डार्केंस हर हिल्स, वहां पे भी पहाड़ियां भी थी. इसी इज ऑस्ट्रेलिया एज अ कंट्री दैट इज ब्लीक एंड ऑलमोस्ट कलरलेस. लेकिन अब वो किस में तब्दील हो चुका है? अब वो कंट्री जो है ब्लीक है, और कैसे है? कलरलेस है, और कैसे है? डल है. इट्स द प्रेजेंट सिचुएशन. और जब ऑस्ट्रेलिया के पास ट्रीज था, ग्रीनरी थी, तो यह उसका क्या था? पास्ट सिचुएशन था. सो यू कैन जस्ट सी हियर दैट द पोएट कंपेयर्स. ऑस्ट्रेलिया का अपना वजूद था, ऑस्ट्रेलिया का अपना आइडेंटिटी थी, ऑस्ट्रेलिया का अपना कल्चर था. ऑस्ट्रेलिया एक एक केवल जियोग्राफिकल बाउंड्री का नाम नहीं था. इट हैज its own history, it has its own culture, it has its own religious belief, it has its own feeling, it has its own religious sentiment. And Australia was recognized. Yeah, the people could know about Australia because of its greenery, because of its trees, because of its mountains, because of its myth, because of its stories, because of its national heroes. But when Australia was colonized, it turned into a colorless and dull country. It's a very important. You find here what you find the coming of the colonizer and how colonizer just snatched the beauty of Australia. And Australia that was an independent nation, Australia that was a free nation, Australia that has its own culture, its own beauty, how it lost its color and turned into a colorless nation or dull country. That is the point. This very much resembles the field uniform of modern wars. और वह उसकी तुलना किससे करते हैं? The poet compares the land of Australia जैसे किसी युद्ध के मैदान में बहुत सारे सैनिक यूनिफॉर्म में गए हुए हैं और उसको देखा जाए वहां एक डर का वातावरण हो, वैसी ही compares the land of Australia with whom with soldiers farm and just as they are ready for war. Yeah, something war is going on. Just you can just see how you can say Ukraine lost its beauty, how Russia and Ukraine just fought against each other. Russian soldiers were kidnapped there, and the citizens of Ukraine were brutally murdered, yeah, beheaded. So, what I want to say ki war is not the solution of any problem. Ukraine is a small country in comparison of Russia, but facing the challenges, not left the field. But you find that what you got, what I got, what the people of that nation got, they lost their sovereignty, they lost their identity, something. Or and Russia is trying to snatch the part, to snatch the sovereignty, to snatch the identity of Ukraine, and just want to make Ukraine, you can say, just like the game of cat and rat like game. So what I want to say, the identity of someone is important, the culture of someone is important, uh, the civilization of someone is important, their history is important, their religious sentiments are important, their myths are important. The people love their nation. They don't want to lose yeah, they don't want to any invader, any attacker, any outsider come and snatch our identity. No, not at. The people are not ready. These things. So the same thing you see there कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया जो एक ब्यूटीफुल लैंड था, जो एक ग्रीन लैंड था, जो एक ग्रीन नेशन का सिंबल था, where there were mountains, where there were trees, where there were rivers. Now it's colorless and it's a dull and it's a bleak and it has lost its greenery. And that thing has been compared with a battlefield where there are only soldiers with weapon, with AK-47 in uniform, ready to devastate, ready to eradicate, ready to destroy. या यू कैन यूज एनी वर्ड्स वट एवर यू लाइक टू, समथिंग जो कि युद्ध के मैदान में या युद्ध से होता है, वेर एवरीथिंग इज इन स्टेट ऑफ ग्रे एंड ग्रीन. यानी कि सब कुछ जो है क्या हो चुका, अब ग्रे और ग्रीन जो था इट हैज लास्ट, अब सब कुछ उसका केवल कुछ नहीं है. द पोएट लाइक्स द कंट्री टू yeah, the poet likes the country to a sphinx. The sphinx was a figure from Egyptian myth. Yeah, Egyptian myth का ये है, which possess the body of a lion, just as you can say what, just as you can say Hiranyakashyap in Indian myth में. तो जो स्पिंक्स जो है, it is what is it's just like what it has the body of lion and the head of a man. The body of a lion, the incarnation, एक ऐसा अवतार जिसमें उसके पास क्या है, वहां का जो एक स्टेच्यू है, जो एक इमेज है उस स्टेच्यू का, लायंस बॉडी एंड मैंस हेड. मैंस का जो हेड है वो किसका प्रतीक है? वो जो है मैन इज अ रेशनल क्रिएचर, उसकी चालाकी का प्रतीक है. और लायन जो होता है शक्तिशाली, तो शरीर उसको लायन का मिला है और हेड मैन का मिला, ये कॉम्बिनेशन है जो है. And we see these things also where we see this such type of image in the second coming, if you remember, a poem composed by W.B. Yeats. So you find here what you find here, the body of lion and head of a man. This comparison could be directly related to the author's vision of Australia. The poet suggests that Australia's realm of intelligence and power have now been worn away. A very significant point. वंश एक ऐसा था कि जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया का अपना इंटेलिजेंस था, उसका अपना पार था, ये सब आज क्या हो चुका, वर्न अवे, सब उससे छीन लिया गया, उसका अपना कुछ नहीं है. वी सजेस्ट दैट ऑस्ट्रेलिया यूज्ड टू बी अ बेटर दैट इट इज नाउ. आज की तुलना में ऑस्ट्रेलिया ज्यादा पहले अच्छा मुल्क था, बेहतर मुल्क था, जिसको अपनी बौद्धिकता पर गर्व था, अपनी संपदा पर गर्व था, अपनी शक्ति पर गर्व था, लेकिन ये सब कुछ छीन लिया गया है. और आज की तुलना में ऑस्ट्रेलिया आज के समय में कोई बेहतर नेशन नहीं है. ही बिलीव्स दैट ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज अ कंट्री दैट इज ओल्ड. वही भी कहता है इट्स अ कंट्री दैट इज ओल्ड. पीपल में कॉल ऑस्ट्रेलिया अ यंग कंट्री बट दे लाई. अ वेरी सैटिरिकल स्टेटमेंट. हियर इज द वर्ड, अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लाइन. The people may call Australia a young country but they lie. लोग ऑस्ट्रेलिया को यंग कंट्री कह सकते हैं लेकिन वे झूठ बोलते हैं. क्यों यंग कंट्री कह सकते हैं? वो ये कह सकते हैं ऑस्ट्रेलिया तो अभी स्वतंत्र हुआ है, इसलिए वो यंग कंट्री है. नो, आज वो स्वतंत्र हुआ है लेकिन उसका वजूद कई हजार सालों का है. जैसे हम सारे लोग कहते हैं हमारी सभ्यता, हमारी संस्कृति, भारतवर्ष, हमारा वजूद 5,000 सालों का इतिहास हमने समेटा हुआ है. As we feel pride being an Indian, in the same way they also feel pride कि हमारा इतिहास है, हमारा कल्चर है, हमारा कंट्री कोई यंग कंट्री नहीं. If the people say that Australia is a young country, the people tell a lie. They lie. Australia to him is the last of lands, the impetuous. A woman beyond her change of life, a breast is still tender, but within the womb is dry. A very important point. If the people say कि वो तुलना करता ऑस्ट्रेलिया टू हिम इज, ऑस्ट्रेलिया उनकी नजर में क्या है, लास्ट ऑफ लैंड्स है. यह एक ऐसी लैंड है जो खो चुकी है, जिसका अपना कोई वजूद नहीं, जो खाली पड़ा हुआ है. अ वुमन, उसकी तुलना उस औरत से की जा सकती है बियॉन्ड हर चेंज ऑफ लाइफ, जिसकी जो है, जिसकी जिसकी जीवन में कोई परिवर्तन नहीं आया. अ वुमन बियॉन्ड हर चेंज of life. A breast is still tender but within the womb. जिसका breast है tender but the womb is dry. Australia may be considered as a young by the world's standard, but it is empty within. कह रहे हैं कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया एक तरह से दुनिया की नजर में यंग नेशन हो सकता है, लेकिन उसमें बहुत कुछ खाली है, उसको लूटा गया, बर्बाद किया गया, छीना गया. इट हैज ओनली एक्सटर्नल ब्यूटी बट नो इनर ब्यूटी. ये एक पेन है पोएट का, ये एक पेन है जो आपको ध्यान में रखना. पोयर की नजर में ऑस्ट्रेलिया की जो देखने में केवल उसमें बाह्य सुंदरता, लेकिन उसकी आंतरिक सुंदरता को खत्म कर दिया गया. उसकी आंतरिक सुंदरता, वहाँ का हिस्ट्री, वहाँ का ट्रीज, वहाँ का माउंटेन, वहाँ का नेचुरल ब्यूटी, वहाँ का आइलैंड, वहाँ का नेशनल हीरोज, मिथ, कल्चर, सो मेनी थिंग जिस पर एक राष्ट्र को गर्व होता है. ऑस्ट्रेलिया टू हिम इज डिवॉइड ऑफ कल्चर. उसका कल्चर खत्म किया गया. इज विदाउट सॉन्ग्स, आर्किटेक्चर एंड हिस्ट्री. वर्तमान में ऐसा लगता है उसका कोई सॉन्ग्स नहीं है, उसका कोई आर्किटेक्चर नहीं, उसका कोई हिस्ट्री नहीं है. ही सीज ऑस्ट्रेलिया एज बीइंग अ कंट्री दैट हैज नीदर हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड नॉर कल्चर. पोयट को ऐसा लगता है कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया का ना कोई हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड है और ना ही कोई कल्चर है. He believes that it has the capabilities to do so. However, the ideas are drowned among islands. And वो ये भी विश्वास करता है कि बहुत सारी योग्यताएं थी, बहुत सारी चीजें थी जिसमें बहुत कुछ किया जा सकता है, लेकिन ये सारी की सारी चीजें कहाँ हो गई, उस आइलैंड में, उसी आइलैंड के रेत में दफन हो गई है. ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज पोर्ट्रेड एज अ कंट्री दैट इज नथिंग एट ऑल. और ऑस्ट्रेलिया को ऐसा पोर्ट्रेट किया गया जैसे एक ऐसा वतन हो जिसके पास कुछ ना हो. वेयर देर आर मोनोटोनस ट्राइब्स फ्रॉम कायरा टू पर्थ. कह रहे कि जहां पर केवल जो है ट्राइब्स लोग रहते हैं, जनजातियां रहती हैं इन दोनों शहरों में. फ्रॉम कायरा टू पर्थ, कायरा और से लेकर पर्थ तक केवल और केवल जो है मोनोटोनस ट्राइब्स रहते हैं. दे डोंट हैव एनी कल्चर, दे डोंट हैव एनी हिस्ट्री, दे डोंट हैव साइंटिफिक विजन, दे डोंट हैव द एबीसीडी ऑफ सिविलाइजेशन, दीज थिंग्स. The five main cities are compared, five teeming swords. The people who come to live in Australia do not boast of living but rather merely surviving. जो लोग भी ऑस्ट्रेलिया में रह रहे हैं उनको अपने ऊपर गर्व नहीं है, ऐसा लगता है जैसे वे यहाँ पे केवल सरवाइव कर रहे हैं। क्योंकि जिस राष्ट्र का आइडेंटिटी, उसका कल्चर, उसकी चीजें छीन ली जाएंगी तो उनको कुछ भी मिलने वाला नहीं है। He believes that people who move here are rather unwelcome. He believes that people who move here are rather unwelcome and they are second-hand Europeans. He believes that कि कोई भी आदमी जो यहाँ मूव करता है, who move here, जो यहाँ आता है, उनका कोई वेलकम नहीं किया जाता और उनको क्या समझा जाता, सेकेंड हैंड यूरोपियन, सेकेंड क्लास सिटीजन दैट ग्रो रैपिडली ऑन दीज एलियन शो, जो यहाँ पर आके पले बढ़े। He sees these people as people who drain ऑस्ट्रेलिया। वो देखते हैं यही लोग हैं जिन्होंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया को क्या किया, खत्म कर दिया। फॉर हिम इट इज अ वास्ट पैरासाइट रॉबर स्टेट। ऐसा लगता है ऑस्ट्रेलिया एक ऐसा स्टेट है जिसको रॉबर किया गया, जिसको लूटा गया, जिसको रॉबरिंग की गई, विच हैज लॉस्ट इट्स ओरिजिनल वाइटलिटी, जिसने अपनी ओरिजिनल वाइटलिटी को खो दिया, अपनी इंपॉर्टेंस को खो दिया है। The last two stanzas, जो लास्ट के टू स्टैंजाज है, रिफर टू मॉडर्न सिविलाइजेशन ऑफ ऑस्ट्रेलिया, वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया के मॉडर्न सिविलाइजेशन को रिफर करते हैं। फॉर होप, एडी होप के लिए द सिविलाइजेशन ऑफ ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज नथिंग, ऑस्ट्रेलिया की सभ्यता कुछ भी नहीं है। द फॉल्स इमिटेशन ऑफ कल्चर एप्स, और इसमें ऐसा लगता है कि बहुत सारी सभ्यताओं को केवल नकल की गई है, विच इज मिस्टेकन एज मॉडर्न सिविलाइजेशन, जिसको हम गलती से क्या कहते हैं, मॉडर्न सिविलाइजेशन। So you come to know here कि the poet tells about Australia, its culture. The poet has something, उसका गम है, उसका दुख है कि जिस वतन में हम रहते हैं, जिस तरह से उसको हम देख रहे, ले रहे, उस तरह से हमारा वतन नहीं रह गया है, या कैसे उसे बर्बाद किया गया, कैसे उसे छीना गया। All these things you find. तो वही सेम थीम, सेम चीजें, कोलोनाइजर, कोलोनाइज्ड, सेटलर, डिवास्टेशन ऑफ कल्चर, रॉबरिंग, डकैती, you can say looting of these things. So these things we see, these things we find. तो यहाँ तक था जो है, मैंने I have done this and I hope that you have enjoyed. I would like to conclude here, just conclude the session. If you have any issue or any problem, you can share in group also. Okay, thank you.